Well, you need some help on your fantasy team, and we are here to do just that. As the week 3 waiver wire on the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom, and the quarterbacks, including down there in New Orleans, they just can't stop scoring. And Derek Carr himself can't stop scoring at one of the top quarterbacks you can pick up on your waiver wire this week.
Yeah, of course. And again, I want to start out saying, hey, everybody, it's hard. Fantasy football is a war of attrition. Fantasy football rewards perseverance. It rewards struggling through adversity, just like the NFL. So next week, it's going to be somebody else who stepped on a landmine. A lot of landmines this week. And quarterback, the landmines aren't necessarily injury related. It was just quarterbacks that are underperforming. Derek Carr, greatly overperforming. And again, I'm always using 60% in Yahoo League. So I know this might not be relevant to all of you who are hardcore players, but still we get to talk about these players. And again, it's Clint Kubiak. I mean, there's no hotter name right now in NFL coaching circles. And we talk about coaches and quarterbacks together. And Derek Carr has always been a quarterback who's very amenable to structure. He's very amenable to being an extension of the offensive coordinator and play caller's intentions. So maybe it's not that surprising that it's good, but this good, nobody saw that coming. And really, again, with Derek Carr, we don't know how good he can be for fantasy yet because these games are over at halftime.
Yeah. So they yet to test him, yet to really push him and the talent around him. Like you didn't get Alvin Kamara in your fantasy draft. You can get a piece of that by the guy who tosses him the rock, Rashid Shaheed. Man, he's great in return leagues. He's great in non-return leagues. He's all of them. So it's like, okay, get a piece of that with Derek Carr. He's not the only one. And Sigmund, I'm going to toss you Malik Willis. You do have a preemptive pickup as well.
Yeah.
By the way, the full report is always available with percentages at footballguys.com. So subscribe to footballguys.com. We get this show out there for you hot and fresh for Monday waivers. But Malik Willis, while Jordan Love is out, they can win some football games and Malik Willis can play some good football.
And again, didn't really have to get out of his comfort zone. And he was in a comfort zone with what Matt LaFleur did for him. Going up against Tennessee this week, we'll see how that goes. A spot start guy, as Jordan Love should be back week 5 or so. There's another spot start guy in Skylar Thompson. It's going to be interesting to see how Mike McDaniel sets him up. Some other guys maybe for longer term, if they're still out there, Darnold, Geno Smith, as we see now that Ryan Grubb can go pass heavy. Some redemption stories. Daniel Jones, Gardner Minshew, Justin Fields, who's probably going to remain the starter. And let's mention as a preemptive pickup for your super flex leagues, Drew Lock falling a little bit. Jameis Winston, don't give up on Jameis Winston. Michael Penix, we'll see how things go on Monday night with Kirk Cousins. Andy Dalton, again, all of the calls are getting louder to say, for Bryce Young's sake, let's let him sit a little bit. And we know that Andy Dalton can be a solid fantasy quarterback, and certainly in 2 quarterback superflex leagues, every starter has value. I think he's going to be a starter soon if Dave Canales is doing it the right way.
You know what's going to happen is Bryce Young's going to go elsewhere, much like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, and he's going to thrive. No, I'm talking about former Carolina Panthers quarterbacks.
Oh yeah.
Like somebody tweeted out the, what Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold have done since leaving Carolina. And it's like, shine, awesome.
Right. It's the organization. Organization matters. Ownership matters.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Running backs are up next. And, well, it makes me so sad that Isaiah Pacheco's a little bit banged up, but he runs ones. He runs
Is that you,
with
Elmer?
no regard for his body, and it is Wabbit season. Well, actually, it is Carson Steele, Samaje Perine season.
Samaje P. Wine. He wins with no regard. Let's just do the whole show as Elmer Fudd.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're going to bring in somebody. I think the bottom line, so we could get into the nebulous, is it Carson Steele or is it Samaje Perine? I would put, if you have to pick one, I would prioritize Steele just because I think he's the short yardage guy. I think he's the grind out the end of the game guy. Perine, more of the Jerick McKinnon role. Maybe we'll see Jerick McKinnon back. We'll see what they do about a running back. Deneric Prince, I believe, is on Miami's practice squad right now. So we'll see what they do. But I think the bottom line is don't break the bank. And Pacheco's going on IR. It's a fibula injury. That's rough. But even they announce he's out for the year, because he has to have surgery or something like that. I still am not that excited to get a Kansas City running back. If anything, Cease, I think the fantasy angle here is more Patrick Mahomes. I would expect more if there's any chance for Travis Kelce, who's really looking like he's ready for the celebrity part of his life at this point. That's how Travis Kelce gets back involved. That's how you get even more volume to Roshy Rice, how you get more creative uses of Xavier Worthy. That's how we get there, as Kansas City got a big win somehow, but maybe an even a bigger loss as far as what makes their offense go.
Yeah, what helps that offense tick? Shorter passes to complement the handoffs, maybe, more Mahomes. And then we'll watch to see what Steele and Perine can do. Now, I had him as a what the heck flex, and trust me, I'm not breaking my arm patting myself on the back because sometimes those hit, sometimes they don't. But it was Antonio Gibson. And we saw that it's not just all about Ramondre Stevenson. So Gibson is one of the leaders in the next tier of running backs here.
So we're looking at backup running backs. And of course, Braelon Allen would lead this whole segment if he wasn't drafted and he's out there after how good he looked. And he doesn't even need a Breece Hall injury to have fantasy value. But otherwise, we're looking at backup running backs and we're saying, again, is the offense good? Is the player good? Is there a chance they're going to get to play? Okay. With the case of Antonio Gibson, he's not strictly a backup, but we know this team's going to go run heavy. And we know he looks good. He looked really good. Bucky Irving belongs in this tier also, as Rachaad White left briefly with a groin injury, and Joe Mixon left briefly with an ankle injury. So Cam Akers, even though, boy, it looks like the Houston Texans running game turned back into a pumpkin. I know it's not Halloween yet. Maybe it's just that we want to start everybody against Indianapolis. DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, a little preview of what the heck flex is next week. But we're watching the backup running back merry-go-round, and it's going to keep spinning all year.
Yeah, it's going to keep spinning, and that's why you just got to stay tuned for that. And regardless of your strategy, there's at least some running back help out there, because there usually always is. Wide receivers is a little hit and miss when it comes to waiver wire help. So sometimes you're set, sometimes you're panicked. This week, maybe a little bit of both. But let's start the wide receiver conversation with Jalen Tolbert and his emerging situation.
And again, here, as we talked about on the recap show on Sunday night, somebody else is going to have to step up, especially while Jake Ferguson's banged up. It was Jalen Tolbert to an extent in the loss to New Orleans. And Jalen Tolbert, certainly it's not Jalen Brooks. Okay. Brandon Cooks, I think we see that he's not going to, he had those big games after the bye week adjustments last year. He doesn't look quite like the same player or capable of that. Jalen Tolbert could be. So you're right, Cease. It is slim pickings out there at wide receiver. You have to get a little creative, but also you have low expectations for these guys. Jalen Tolbert leads because, well, we know Dallas. Here's who's not going to be on the waiver wire show anytime soon: a Dallas running back. We know that a three-headed backfield in an inefficient running game, no bueno. That's a lot of passing for Dak Prescott, which can mean a lot of targets for Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah, and it's like, well, we knew that going in, Bloom. It's one of the reasons why I was so high on Dak Prescott. But then at the same time, it's like, well, you have to run a little.
Sure.
Or else defenses are like, we don't have to put anyone on the line. You can't run. We're going to cluster things up. And unless Tolbert continues to emerge, or Brandon Cooks does more, or something with this team, Jake Ferguson, you're our only hope. Like,
right? The key to the Cowboys offense is Jake Ferguson. That's where we are in week 3. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Week 3 wide receiver conversation. And I can't say I'm surprised this happened. Given his talent, he was always raw coming out of TCU, but Quentin Johnston up next in the next cluster of wide receivers here, Bloom. And you'll love to see it, right? And certainly when the team moves on from a Keenan Allen or a Mike Williams, like, well, I guess you'll see something from Quentin Johnston. I still love Lad McConkey, but like you saw it from Quentin Johnston and you saw the buy-in, I'll use your term.
Yeah.
For Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. Quentin Johnston is a perfect example of that.
Right. And it was also Jim Harbaugh seeing him for who he was. If there was an indicator here that Quentin Johnston could have a chance to come alive, to start to live up to that first-round draft pick status, it was when Jim Harbaugh was talking about him and what he does well, that he correctly identified that, not the kinds of things that Brandon Staley's coaching staff, Kellen Moore, was asking him to do last year. Now, it was still injuries, but why is Quentin Johnston out there? An injury to DJ Chark. What we saw yesterday, again, here's what's important. It was actually winning with his release and his acceleration outside, deep, and against J.C. Horn, who's a good cornerback, okay? This is important. Now, you could say, well, the Chargers are barely going to throw the ball. They only threw the ball 20 times yesterday. He scored twice. So there may be something there for sure. Maybe not against the Steelers this week, but we're looking at that first round draft pick status coming to the surface. And really, one of the things I'd like to say in the preseason, in the offseason, where we're talking about draft plans and who to target and who to avoid, is offenses that can create overachievers. And as strange as it sounds, even though this is such a run heavy offense, maybe it can create one overachiever at wide receiver because our expectations were so low and because Justin Herbert is a pretty good quarterback. Alec Pierce, if he's still out there, scored again. You see the chemistry with Anthony Richardson. Jerry Jeudy. See, you can talk a little bit about Jeudy, having covered him for a while, but if there's a guy that's on the same page with Deshaun Watson right now, it's Jerry Jeudy. Amari Cooper with some drops. Jalen Naylor, I don't think Justin Jefferson's going to miss time, but Naylor has scored 2 weeks in a row. Minnesota, Houston this week. And again, getting out ahead of things. So maybe for the deeper leagues, Jermaine Burton and how things change. Because before the season, Paul Dehner Jr., the Athletic, saying Burrow can't trust him. The team can't trust him yet. This is a redshirt year. He has to show that he can be where he's supposed to be, do what he's supposed to do before they're going to trust him. Then all of a sudden you go on the road to Foxborough and you lose week 1. And what we saw is, okay, a lot of passes to the tight ends, not a lot of Jamar Chase, and Jermaine Burton doing exactly what you want him to do, which again, he and Quentin Johnston did basically the same thing. Win at the release, show that instant acceleration when you have a lane, get downfield, and make a big play. So, yeah, T. Higgins is going to be back soon, but I don't even think T. Higgins offers that same ability to separate downfield. T. Higgins can win downfield, but separate downfield. You have a good quarterback there in Joe Burrow. So necessity is the mother of invention, and necessity can be the mother of waiver wire pickups.
Yeah, we didn't get into it in the recap show, but there was the talk show circuit. Unfortunately, everything's become like, can you do first take and we'll call it something else? And everyone's trying to recreate Stephen A. and of course everything that they do. I don't know. But one of the former athletes on one of the shows that happened to be on in the studio one day was like, Joe Burrow's not a good quarterback. And I was like, oh, we've reached that point of ridiculousness. And it's blankety blanky week 1.
Yeah.
So, and week 2, is Joe Burrow still good? Are we there? Yeah, I think we're there. We're there to the tight end section of the program. It is the Audible Waiver Wire show. Again, full waiver report and we're doing this a little differently this year, so we can get the show out to you on a Monday, help you with the waiver wires even faster. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But the full report from Sigmund Bloom, upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report is available at footballguys.com. So go subscribe. It's the best way to support this show. The tight end position is here, and that means Hunter Henry has entered the chat.
And again, Cecil, this might be one backward looking, forward looking. Backward looking, it could be what Denver didn't do in week 1, which is attack the middle of the field of the passing game. New England did. Is it a game for Johnny Smith coming to this show in a few minutes? Because that's what you can do against Seattle and their fast, physical, lengthy outside corners on Hunter Henry. And it also makes sense when you don't have any really established wide receivers that Hunter Henry, he's established. He knows what to do. And tight end, again, carnage, absolute carnage. Let's briefly talk about this. Number 1 tight end in most drafts, Sam Laporta. Travis Kelce, number 2 tight end. Okay, Trey McBride, even jumping on a fumble. You're good there. Mark Andrews. Dalton Kincaid. So it's rough out there. Evan Ingram, ow, my hamstring. Jake Ferguson, ow, my knee. It is rough out there. This is the position for the second week in a row, Cease, that is the most important position on the waiver wire.
Yes, the most important position on the waiver wire, and with some help. Now, you can't go about 5 minutes without talking about the Lions or Jonnu Smith.
Right.
But I will toss you Mike Gesicki
Sure.
to see your Jonnu Smith, because he's always been huge. He's always been a receiver, not much of a blocker. You don't get points for blocking. So Mike Gesicki and others, your favorites, coming
Yeah.
up next.
All of these guys can be spot starts. Mike Gesicki against Washington. I mean, Cecil, if you tell me this waiver wire guy, insert waiver wire name, is playing Washington this week, I'm interested. I'm interested.
Yes.
Jonnu Smith, especially if it's a tight end, they're playing Seattle. I'm interested. Skylar Thompson, there's your guy. Zach Ertz, speaking of Washington, going against Cincinnati, he had a pretty solid game. Leading receiver in terms of yardage. He doesn't look slow and in the way out there. He looks like part of a Washington offense that is very conservative, but he's at least, 4 for 62. I think that's about what he put up. That's fine. You'll take that in a PPR league from your tight end position right now. Luke Schoonmaker, if Jake Ferguson's still out there, he had 6 catches. He had about 40-some yards, so he also is around 10-point range. And Dallas, again, the running game not getting going, a lot on Dak, and it can't all be on one CeeDee Lamb against Baltimore this week.
Yes, and as we get to this portion of the show, you've got to clear the pipes. And well, I mean, maybe I could do this in Elmer Fudd version as well. I am a big Looney Tunes fan. So there you go. So yeah, you get to this point, you need to kind of get rid of some of the bad energy.
Yeah.
You need to negate some of these things from your fantasy team. So you look over and you go, okay, I know it's only week 3, but it is time. So say it with me no matter what you're doing, and then tell me what you're doing when you say this, because this is the point of audience participation. It is time to cue the Chuck D. Can you really do that in Elmer Fudd version? Cue the Chuck D.
Shh, I'm cooing the Chuck D. On the wabbit.
Yes. Time to cue it.
Yeah. See, over in Algiers, there's actually a bar. It's pretty popular for people called the Wabbit. Sad. This is always sad, shutting them down. Tua, if he wants to play, and it sounds like he does, I hope we see him again soon. But I'm not waiting around for that in a typical one quarterback league. Matthew Stafford, oh my. Ugh. You talk about really shorthanded. Everything is falling apart around him. I'm not saying, like, I would, if it was Caleb Williams or Derek Carr, maybe even Caleb Williams or Sam Darnold or Geno Smith. If I to pick up Braelon Allen, to pick up Jalen Tolbert, I had to drop Caleb Williams, Hunter Henry. Yeah, I probably would. We talked about Ezekiel Elliott. He had his ceiling game in week 1, 11 points in a PPR league. Maybe he'll have more of those games, but unless you're really hard up for depth, I'm not holding on to him at this point. DeAndre Hopkins, I'm not really sure what we're waiting around for here. Will Levis isn't going to throw. I know Brian Callen has said, we're going to throw 25, 30 times a game. I don't think that's a recipe for DeAndre Hopkins. Keon Coleman, meaning I'm not dropping Keon Coleman just because. Maybe, but if, like, who's more likely to make an impact this year? Keon Coleman or Jermaine Burton? Keon Coleman or Quentin Johnston? I mean, we've already seen a couple of weeks. I don't know what we're waiting for here. Alan Lazard, it was a 1-week thing. Tyler Johnson. Remember when he was it feels like so long ago that Tyler Johnson was a waiver wire pickup across leagues. Greg Dortch, Greg Dortch or Jalen Tolbert. I mean, it's just more likely that Jalen Tolbert's going to get the targets at this point. Colby Parkinson, boy, it's about merry-go-round. That's going to be a lot of our tight end position this year. Colby Parkinson, get off of the horse. Someone else, get on.
Yes, get on up here. And sometimes on the flip side of shut them down, you just have to hold on. So who are some of those players to hold on in week 3?
See, I'm curious because this is your division. You think that the Raiders can still get Zamir White going this year?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. Things are going in the right direction for this team. We saw at the end of last year how they want to use Zamir White. They haven't been able to do that yet. I would not give up on that. And don't give up on Jerome Ford. Do not shut down Jerome Ford. Hold on to Jerome Ford. Deontay Foreman, 3 yards per carry, fumble at the goal line. Pierre Strong, hamstring. Nick Chubb will be coming soon, but not yet. So that means this week against the Giants, and they're going to be able to get in a comfort zone. The Giants aren't going to run them out of the building. Jerome Ford should be back into a central place in this offense. Hold on.
We're back into a central place in your heart. And that's why we are here. It is the Audible. It's Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. And that is a wrap for our week 3 Waiver Wire show. We've got our preview show. Of course, Bob Harris doing shows on this channel. So subscribe. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Wednesday and Thursday, our preview shows on the couch on Wednesday. Thursday night, Matt Waldman live. Yes, please. So, yeah.
Jeff, ring my bell.
That's right. So subscribe, like, comment, share, subscribe, and help us out and grow the YouTube channel. We need your help. So please help us by doing that thing. And also, if you want to support the show, go to footballguys.com and click subscribe. Get the full waiver wire report from one Sigmund Bloom. He is Sigmund. Follow him on Twitter, X at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show's at the Audible saying, watch these other videos. Think about it. Don't think about it. Just click it. Feels good. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty.